He's got a ways to go still. But I saw signs of it. I see what Campbell's saying. In terms of labeling him reliable, that's what year 3 is all about. This is the number 12 pick. The expectation for me, 750 yards, 800 yards this season? Probably still going to be behind St. Brown and Laporta in the pecking order. Yeah. How about a couple 100-yard games? He didn't have a single 100-yard game this year. I get it. The volume is going to be hit and miss, right? There's going to be some volatility to his role. It's a run-first offense. They've got a clear-cut guy in St. Brown, and you got to feed Laporta. He may have games where he only gets targeted 2 times, but every 3 or 4 games, maybe he gets a big play and has a 100-yard day. I think that's kind of the role he was envisioned to be, and he has not yet become that guy. So you guys tell us. I mean, he's at a pivotal juncture of his career. People were hard on him, and I think expectations come with being the 12th overall pick. On a team now chasing a Super Bowl, the expectations aren't going anywhere. They're going to be higher for year 3 than they were last year. And I know it's the mean media that's hard on this guy. We think he has the skill to do it. I do anyway, and I think you do as well.
There's no question he has the skill to do it. He has the skill. He has a unique skill that not many guys have, and that's just absolutely explosive speed. His acceleration and top-end speed is second to none. And so when you're thinking about how can he be reliable, what does that mean for this team? Being reliable for this team means that, hey, when a team takes away Amon-Ra St. Brown or limits him, when a team also limits, because they're kind of running routes in the same part of the field, Amon-Ra St. Brown and your tight end, Laporta. Okay, how does J-Mo pick up the slack? That's where he's got to have that 100-yard game. I'm not expecting him to go out there and be a 100-yard receiver every time.
No.
And I'm not even, in some games,
it's Tyreek Hill stuff.
Sometimes he's going to be a 2-target-a-game guy because the ball's going to Laporta. The ball's going to Amon-Ra St. Brown. The ball's being handed off to Montgomery.
They're playing
Gibbs.
with a lead, right?
Yeah. But there are going to be other times where I want to see him be in that 10-target area because you just can't find Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh, there's J-Mo.
There was a play in the NFC title where if they convert it, maybe we're talking about it differently. And I think some of this is the ongoing battle about chemistry with him and Jared Goff. But there's no excuse this year because there's not a looming suspension, at least not one we're aware of, right? You hope you learn your lesson. There's no lingering injury. He'll go into training camp, and before even training camp, guys throwing in the offseason, he'll go into this season with as much runway as he's ever had to where he can be right there from day one and succeed. And that's the expectation, right? That they took this guy to be a dangerous player down the field. He had the game against Denver, 7 targets, 47 yards. Not earth-shattering, but it was the first time I really thought they were using him as a receiver. The very next week against Minnesota, 6 targets, 5 catches, 43 yards. Again, not lighting the world on fire, but being someone you can rely on more down the field. The drops, less of an issue later in the year than they were earlier in the year. That's, I think, always going to be part of his story. Campbell said last year he's not really a natural hands catcher, but if you make up for it by running the right routes, blocking down the field, and occasionally having a game that you win. I mean, you make the play that wins the game. I mean, he had the big play against the Bears late in the game.
Yeah.
Having more of those over the course of 17 games in the postseason, I think it's in the cards for J-Mo. He's still, though, got to do it for a full year. We haven't seen that yet.
Right. And when people sometimes will use the term, he's a gadget guy. All right, he's the guy that you run reverses with, some trick plays. And if you're only doing that once a year, twice a year, yeah, those are gadget plays. But when you run the same play time and time again, and I'm not saying every game or even multiple times in a game, but it's effective. It's effective because it's blocked well, it's called at the right time, and you have a guy that can just do something better than anybody else. And that's J-Mo. When he runs the reverse, we saw it in the NFC Championship game. He's just faster than everyone else. And you're taking your recovery time on identifying what's going on with him with the ball in his hands is much less than it is anyone else. So if it happens repeatedly, I mean, how many times do we talk about, well, how does Amon-Ra St. Brown get open on those those crossing routes? Well, it's not a gadget because they do it multiple times. If you're able to do it multiple times with J-Mo, it becomes a weapon and not a gadget.
Yeah, they are in a position, and some of this has been Jansen coming back to the familiarity, the continuity, another year for him to scheme up some stuff. They do a really nice job putting defenses in conflict, and part of that is if you hesitate for a second,
He's gone.
Misdirection, play action. He's got a step. He already had a step, and now he's got 2 or 3, and he's off to the races. That play against the Niners, everybody else is in slow motion.
And they're grabbing his T-shirt.
Right. They can't get to him.
Yeah.
So, J-Mo. Texter says could be a top 5 receiver with his ridiculous speed, just has to want it. That's from Rich. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5 receiver.
I don't think so either.
I don't think the offense is set for him to be a top 5 receiver.
No, if he's a top 5 receiver, it's not going to be in Detroit. And that's because he's a guy he's going into his 3rd year. You pick up his 5th. Maybe that's the last year that he's here, because at that point, 3 years further down the road, you can't pay everybody. And if you're still paying Amon-Ra St. Brown and he's still a 15,000 or 1,500 receiver, you're not going to take J-Mo over him.
One ball, right?
Yeah.
Now, he did have the 2 touchdowns in the NFC title game, and I think people are excited. So we'll take some calls on J-Mo, some ticket texts on J-Mo.